Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of human fertility, you already know there is a massive, almost dizzying amount of information out there. It could be totally overwhelming, right? So today, we're cutting through the noise. We're taking a dense, completely research-backed list of 16 natural fertility tips from Healthline, and we're translating it into a clear, highly structured toolkit. Think of this as your new blueprint. We're going to break the complex science down into bite-sized, manageable pieces.
So can you actually naturally boost fertility? Let's be real for a second, right out of the gate. Fertility journeys, they can often feel so incredibly out of your control, and that can be wildly frustrating. But here's what's genuinely exciting. Science actually shows us that specific, natural tweaks to your lifestyle and diet can seriously move the needle. Now, obviously, medical treatment is sometimes necessary, absolutely, but your everyday habits, they lay the entire foundation for your reproductive health. So let's dive right in and see exactly how that works.
To keep all 16 of these scientific tips from feeling like too much at once, we've organized them into 3 super straightforward pillars. We'll start with Pillar 1, your diet, then Pillar 2, your lifestyle, Pillar 3, targeted supplements, and finally we'll wrap it all up with the bottom line.
All right, let's jump right into Pillar 1, your diet.
Now, before we even look at a single piece of food, we really need to talk about PCOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome. Understanding PCOS is absolutely crucial because it is one of the major causes of female infertility. See, this condition is heavily rooted in hormonal imbalances and inflammation. Because of that, several of the specific dietary tips we're about to cover, things like meal timing and how you manage your carbs, are specifically targeted at calming down that exact inflammation.
If you're navigating PCOS, when you eat is actually just as huge as what you eat. It's fascinating. Studies show that eating a larger, more substantial breakfast can actually improve some of the hormonal effects of PCOS that tend to block fertility. Getting more of your calories earlier in the day really seems to help with symptoms. You combine that kind of timing with a reduction in overall carbohydrates, and specifically cutting down on those refined carbs, you're basically creating an internal environment that better supports egg maturation by keeping your insulin levels perfectly in check.
So the magic word here is carbohydrates, but what does reducing them actually look like in the real world? 45%. That's your anchor right there. If you have PCOS, the research suggests keeping your daily carbs under 45% of your total calories. To put that into perspective, if you're eating an 1,800-calorie diet, that's roughly 200 grams of carbs a day. But hey, quick medical caveat, don't go totally overboard with the restriction. Eating too few carbs can trigger a whole other set of health issues, so balance really is everything here.
And it's not just the amount of carbs, it's the type. When you eat refined carbs, think sugary snacks, white pasta, white bread, your body absorbs them ridiculously fast. That completely spikes your blood sugar and your insulin. And here's the crazy biological twist. Insulin is chemically super similar to your ovarian hormones. So if your insulin is constantly high, your body gets tricked. It thinks it doesn't need to produce reproductive hormones, which literally stalls egg maturation and ovulation. Instead, you want to lean on slower digesting complex carbs to keep everything nice and steady. Moving on from carbs, we land on a very specific, totally doable daily target, 25 grams. That is your daily fiber goal. A 2020 study found that aiming for 25 grams of daily fiber from stuff like whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and beans can actually slightly increase female fertility. Why is that? Well, diets high in fiber just naturally tend to be lower in added sugars, which loops right back to helping regulate that delicate insulin balance we were just talking about. Next up, let's talk about your cellular bodyguards, antioxidants and omega-3 fatty acids. Getting these nutrients in your diet provides some really positive evidence for improving both male and female fertility. Now, scientists consider the evidence weak, but it's still positive. Antioxidants essentially run around deactivating free radicals, these rogue molecules that can literally damage sperm and egg cells. Loading up on walnuts, fatty fish, chia seeds, and a whole rainbow of fruits and vegetables, that's how you build up those cellular defenses.
Okay, let's talk dairy, because this paints a really interesting, nuanced picture. A lot of people just assume dairy is terrible for fertility, but the research doesn't actually back up that fear. However, it's highly specific to gender. For females, full-fat dairy is often studied, and they haven't found negative links to fertility. Plus, it's packed with vitamin D, which might actually help. But for males who are looking to protect sperm quality, a 2013 study suggests reaching for low-fat dairy instead, because full fat might actually have a negative impact on sperm. Pretty interesting, right?
Moving right along to Pillar 2, your lifestyle. We all know exercise is fantastic for us, but when it comes to fertility, it's really all about the Goldilocks zone. Moderate physical activity, amazing for both female and male fertility. But here is a critical warning from the data. Excessive, extremely high-intensity workouts might actually hurt female reproduction. Think about it, your body needs resources to reproduce. If you are constantly pushing yourself to your absolute physical limits day in and day out, your body might just shut down reproductive functions to conserve energy.
So where does weight fit into this puzzle? The data from a 2020 study gives us some incredibly encouraging news. We know that being either overweight or underweight can throw off your menstrual cycle and ovulation. But for individuals dealing with obesity, the data shows that losing just 5% of your body weight can significantly regulate ovulation and boost fertility. You don't always need some massive sweeping weight loss transformation. Just a targeted 5% shift can be exactly what you need to kickstart those reproductive hormones.
Let's zoom in on the stuff you do every single day: managing stress and drinking coffee. Look, trying to conceive is profoundly stressful. And while scientists debate the exact link between stress and fertility, we know for a fact that stress can wreak havoc on your menstrual cycle. So actively taking time to relax, that's not just self-care, it's a legitimate medical strategy. And what about caffeine? The evidence isn't perfectly black and white, but experts agree the smartest approach is just limiting your coffee to 1 or 2 cups a day.
Now let's turn to alcohol. The research actually pinpoints a very specific threshold here: 12.5 grams. A 2017 systematic review found that consuming more than 12.5 grams of alcohol daily actively negatively impacts female fertility. Now, you need the context for this. One standard US drink contains about 14 grams of alcohol, meaning literally one standard drink puts you over the limit identified in that study. If you're trying to conceive and there is any chance you might already be pregnant, dodging alcohol entirely is absolutely your safest bet.
All right, let's wrap up our pillars with number 3, targeted supplements.
Taking a good prenatal vitamin loaded with folic acid and B vitamins? That's a highly recommended baseline if you're trying to conceive. But what's really fascinating is the role of iron. Low iron is directly linked to reduced female fertility. If your blood work says you're low, a supplement might be in order. But here's the catch. If you choose plant-based iron, which is called non-heme iron, your body has a really hard time absorbing it. The pro tip? Combine that plant iron with vitamin C. Literally, just drink a glass of orange juice with your supplement and you'll dramatically maximize how much your body absorbs.
Now hold up, before you run out and buy an entire shelf of supplements, I need to highlight this critical caveat, straight from the source material. The FDA does not strictly regulate supplements for quality and safety the way they do for prescription medications. So the takeaway here is absolutely vital. Always meticulously research the brands you're buying, and even more importantly, talk to your healthcare professional before adding any new pill, powder, or gummy to your daily routine.
Okay, here's a slightly surprising tip from the research: bee products. Things like pollen, royal jelly, and propolis have actually been used historically for centuries to try and boost fertility. Some recent reviews even suggest they might help with PCOS-related infertility and male fertility. But don't get too caught up in the buzz just yet. The study authors are very clear that, so far, the significant fertility benefits from bee products have mostly been seen in animal studies. It's really cool science to keep an eye on, but the human data just isn't quite there yet. And finally, let's hit the bottom line.
So where does all of this leave us? Well, these natural tools offer a seriously empowering, science-backed way to improve your chances of pregnancy. They put a sense of agency back into your hands. But, and this is key, they are absolutely most effective when you pair them with guidance from a healthcare professional who can identify or rule out any underlying medical stuff. So, as you look at your own day-to-day life, how are you going to use this structured toolkit to partner with your doctor and really optimize your fertility journey? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep asking the right questions.